Hey, what's up? It's Tati, and I'm back with another review. This time it's the very first episode of Tales from the Territories. I did watch this episode when it came out, however, I did not review it, so shout out to Christopher for reminding me. So let's get straight into this review. So this was about the promotion CWA, Continental Wrestling Association, also known as Memphis Wrestling. This territory was in the Tennessee and Kentucky area. So in this episode, the panel was Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, Dutch Mantell, Jeff Jarrett, and the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. And the show starts off with a quote that I really like. So Jerry had this sign in his office that said personal issues draw money, and to be completely honest, I agree. I feel like that is something that is missing in pro wrestling nowadays, where they don't take like personal issues or like things that are reality based and put it into storylines. I think the last time that I enjoyed a storyline that was sort of like that was the CM Punk MJF storyline. And if Tony Khan had took advantage of the whole CM Punk and the Young Bucks situation that had took place after that pay-per-view, absolutely that would have drew a lot of money and views for AEW. So let's get into these stories that they talked about this episode. So we start off this episode talking about some of the misfortunes that Jimmy Hart has experienced. Now, while wrestlers got a lot of heat, managers got a lot of heat as well, and Jimmy Hart definitely being one of those guys. He talked about a story where after a 6-man tag, he was being carried to the locker room, and while he was being carried, he felt something hit his butt, right? Because he was on the Dream Machine's shoulders. So he felt something hit his butt, and he thought somebody, put a cigarette on his butt. But when Dream Machine looked, he was like, that's not a cigarette burn. That's actually a dart up your ass. And he had to take it out or whatnot. And, everyone in the locker room was worried, thinking that, he should get a tetanus shot. And Jimmy didn't want to do that because he was concerned that it would cost too much. And, back in the day, they didn't make that much money. So whatever fee that they received that night is what he had to use to go to the clinic to get a tetanus shot. There was also another story where he was running around the ring, and a guy who really didn't like him stuck his foot out of the barricade, and he had on these cowboy boots, and he kicked him really hard. And for whatever reason, after the show, Jimmy and Jerry the King Lawler, they were leaving the arena after the show, and the guy who kicked Jimmy was outside waiting for him, and he confronts him saying, hey, I'm the one who kicked you. And Jimmy, he's just a manager. He's not a wrestler. He doesn't want to be confronting somebody outside, especially an angry fan. So Jerry takes it upon himself to punch the shit out of this guy, knocking him out in the parking lot. And they talked about how sometimes fans would trying to get physical. They really believed what was going on with these storylines and what was going on in the ring was so real that they had real hatred towards them. And sometimes they try to end up fighting with them and hitting them, and if they were to get caught, the police officers in the arenas will take them to the back and pretty much hold them down and wait for the wrestlers that they hit to come to the back and beat the shit out of them, and then gives them the option of they can either go to jail for touching them, or you can go home. And obviously they'll pick going home, because who wants to go to jail, especially after you instigated the whole situation. So aside from Jimmy Hart, Jerry the King Lawler also had issues with fans, and he talked about this one specific time where he's walking to his car, and as he's almost there, he sees someone standing not too far from his car with a brick in his hand. And Jerry's like, if you throw that brick at my car, I'm going to kill you. And Jerry gets in the car, starts the car, and then the guy throws the brick straight at the windshield. Jerry is pissed off, so he puts his foot on the gas, ready to run this guy over, and the car wouldn't move. And he's surprised, like, what's going on? And the tires is making a really weird sound. Turns out that all four of his tires were slashed, so he couldn't go anywhere, and he was pissed off about this guy not only slashing his tires but damaging the window of his car. On to one of the more crazier stories that they told. So there was a promoter named Roy Welch. He was the promoter for Mid-America Territory. Now, he was having issues with dementia, maybe Alzheimer's, so he was not really doing well mentally. And the people around him took advantage of that by feeding into his mind that Jerry Jarrett wanted to take away the Mid-America Territory. So I guess he decided that either he was going to take things into his own hands or have someone take matters into their hands to make sure that that didn't happen. So one night we have a match between Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett, and right after that match, Jerry Jarrett is hit on the back of his head. Now, for storyline purposes, he thinks that Jerry Lawler's manager was the one who hit him from behind, but when he turns around, it's Mario Galento. Mario is not part of the promotion. He is not even scheduled to be there. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing in the ring. Now, the audience, you know, they basically believe everything that's happening in the ring, so they have no idea that this is not even really part of the show. So now Jerry Jarrett, he's afraid. Mario Galento is a heel. He's intimidating. He's bigger than him, and he's scared. He doesn't know what his agenda was for being there. So then he gets up and actually pulls his eye out of the socket. I believe it was the left eye, and Mario just goes ballistic from there. He gets out the ring, he goes and he grabs a title that was on the table, one of the championship titles, and he goes to attack Jerry Jarrett with it. But then the numbers games kind of, you know, didn't work in his favor when Jerry Lawler decided to, you know, help Jerry Jarrett. So Mario is upset and he runs to the back, and he comes right back out, and he has a nightstick. So he's running to the ring, and he's getting into the ring from the bottom rope, and that gave Jerry Jarrett some leverage to actually grab the nightstick from his hand and started beating Mario with it. So now Mario, he knows he's at a disadvantage, especially since his eye is fucked up. Well, it's gone. So now he runs out the ring, and he stands behind Roy Welch, who I believe they did not even know that he was there. So when Jerry saw Mario standing behind Roy, that's when he realized basically what was going on. And he was so upset at Roy that he was going to swing at him with the nightstick, and someone ended up grabbing his arm to keep him from hitting Roy, because really Roy is not in the right state of mind. Even though I would be upset about everything that happened, you know, he didn't really come up with this whole thing. It was other people who was feeding into him about Jerry Jarrett trying to take Mid-America from him. However, the story doesn't stop here. We do have Mario, who actually comes back for more. So after his wounds have healed up in his face and his eyes, all whatever happened with that, they did say that they believe that he had like over 200 stitches from that situation. He actually comes back maybe a couple of months later. So Jerry Lawler this time is having a match with some unknown kid or whatnot, and after a couple of minutes in the ring with this kid, the kid leaves the ring and he's just staring towards Jerry Lawler, and Jerry is like, what the hell is going on? What was behind Jerry Lawler? It was Mario. Mario standing there. He hits Jerry from behind. Jerry looks and he has a razor in his hand. And then guess who was right next to Mario in the ring? His wife. For whatever reason, I don't know, but she decided she wanted to get involved as well. Jerry was not having it. Jerry runs to the locker room, and he's telling the other guys who are there that, you know, Mario's here and he has a razor. So Mario makes his way into the locker room, and Jimmy Valiant he has a magnum on him and he points it straight in his face, and Mario's like, bruh, I don't want that smoke, and he drops the knife. And little did they know, there was actually a sheriff who was watching the show. Once he saw Mario get involved in the ring or whatnot, I guess he realized something was wrong, so he went backstage to see what was going on. When he went to the locker room, he saw Jimmy with the gun and how everybody was so confrontational and whatnot, and everyone there ended up getting arrested. Like, even though you know, he's there to see the show, he's still got to do his job if he sees something that's not right. So they did end up getting arrested, and Jerry said he had never seen a Mario or Roy after those incidents. CWA was a very popular territory, and they did really well with ratings as well. So every Saturday mornings they did have a live show, and they said 7 out of 10 TVs were watching CWA. So one particular morning they're filming a live show, and Jimmy Hart and the Iron Sheik, they're cutting a promo. Jimmy Hart is waving a Iranian flag like a lunatic, and we have the Iron Sheik who's speaking in Arabic. So the patriotic fans are not really feeling this. However, it gets worse. So a couple of months prior to this, there was an incident where an American helicopter had crashed in Iran. So Jerry Jarrett ends up finding this footage, and they're playing it while Jimmy and the Iron Sheik are doing their promo. Somebody who's actually watching the show is upset because he was involved in that crash, and he ends up calling the studio and telling them, hey, me and my homeboys, we're about to come up over there and we're going to shoot Jimmy and the Iron Sheik. So obviously the studio take that seriously. They call the police comes, and they're standing there by the cameraman so that as soon as they're done cutting the promo, that they can, you know, take the Iron Sheik and Jimmy Hart. So now those dudes actually come to the station with guns, and the police had to de-escalate the situation. But it doesn't stop there. So even though they were able to de-escalate the situation right there and then, that guy who was involved with the crash, he was still really mad about everything, and every week he kept showing up at shows taunting Jimmy Hart, of all people, right? So Jimmy is scared because every time he goes somewhere, this guy is there. Obviously their locations and stuff are being known, everybody knows where they're going to be at, so he had the opportunity to always pop up on Jimmy Hart. So Jimmy tells the guy, look, don't waste your time with beating my scrawny ass in the parking lot. Let's make this a match so everybody can see. The guy actually agrees. However, this ain't no real match that's gonna happen. Jimmy just said that so the guy can back off. But this guy took it really seriously, and he kept calling the studio over and over, talking about, hey, when am I gonna have that match with Jimmy? I'm ready to whoop his ass. That obviously does not end up happening because, you know, he's a fan and Jimmy is supposed to be a professional, so that's definitely not something that they actually would arrange for them to do. But if that did happen, Jimmy will definitely get his ass whooped by whoever this guy was, for sure. So Dutch talks about some places where it was definitely weird for them to wrestle, one of them being a maximum security prison, where after they were searched by the guards left them to go to a tower while the wrestlers were, you know, down on the ground level with just the prisoners. And that obviously left some of these guys really worried, you know, that they're down there with prisoners, and if anything were to happen, these guards were not going to be able to make it to assist them like as soon as possible, since it will take a couple of minutes for them to get down there. Now, another weird situation was when Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantel had a match while a symphony was in the background, like an orchestra was playing music. It is as ridiculous as it sounds. Now, they're in a wrestling ring and they're fighting, and there's live music being played, and I'm not talking about like rock music. I'm talking about an orchestra where they're playing drums and flutes and and all those types of instruments, where it's like, this doesn't even go with wrestling at all. And I think, to make matters worse, that while they're doing that in front of an audience that are not wrestling fans. So these people are really here for the music, but they're not feeling the wrestling. So if I was asked to do something like this, I would definitely would want to say no, because it just, these two things do not go together. If you want to see that match, it is on YouTube, and you can see just how ridiculous it was. Really, really weird. So what's a Tales from the Territories episode without talking about ribs? So Jackie Fargo was a wrestler who helped Jerry King Lawler get into the business. They often rolled together, and he was known as the master of ribs. So one particular night, Jerry King Lawler, he had a match up first. After his match was Jackie Fargo's match. So while Jackie is in the ring, we have Jerry Jarrett, who decides to play a rib on him. So Tojo Yamamoto, he has something called Tiger Bomb, which I guess you can say it's like icy hot. So like wherever you're having pain, you put that on your skin, and it releases like something that feels like heat on your body that's supposed to relieve whatever pain you're having. So Jarrett decides that he's going to rub it all over Jackie's underwear, so you know it could burn, right? And after they do that, the whole time Jerry King Lawler is watching this, but he doesn't say anything. So once Tojo and Jerry Jarrett leaves backstage, then Jackie Fargo goes take a shower, and after he took a shower, he's about to put his underwear on. And then that's when the king was like, hey, don't put that on. And he basically told him what happened. So Jackie decided he's going to get them back for it. So he takes the same Tiger Bomb and he puts it all over Tojo and Jerry Jarrett's clothes so that it could burn all over and not just one spot like how they were going to put in his underwear. So later that night, when everybody leaves, okay, oh, before everybody left, actually Jackie pretends that he puts the underwear that had the Tiger Bomb in it. So now Tojo and Jerry Jarrett thinks that they played a rib on him without them knowing that he already knew and flipped the script on them. So now everybody leaves and they're on their way home. And while Tojo and Jerry Jarrett is driving just a couple of blocks away, that's when they start feeling the heat all over their body. They end up pulling over, take off all their clothes on the side of the road, and put on their wrestling gear. And Jerry knew that they were supposed to be going to a bar that they'd go to, the local bar. So he was like, you know what, I'm gonna get back at Jackie and meet him at the bar and, you know, kick his ass. But when he gets to the bar, the bartender tells him that he had just missed Jackie and Jerry the King Lawler, so he could not, you know, get him right there and then. I think that was like a pretty interesting story because, you know, you're with these guys all the time, and sometimes you gotta play pranks on each other just to, you know, keep everybody alive, I guess. So it's like, you know, so it's not so boring or whatnot since you're with these guys all the time. So CWA, they had a lot of big names with this promotion. One of the bigger names that they had was Randy Savage. Now they did have a few of the Poffo family wrestling for this promotion. However, Randy was the one who became the most popular out of the whole family. And it was this one particular story of Randy going to a Waffle House, and he is hungry as hell. He's agitated from his match and he just wants to eat. So he goes up to the counter to order his food. And right while he's ordering his food, a guy comes in the restaurant, well, the Waffle House, and he goes, look everybody, I'm getting married. And the first thing I thought was, she proposed to you? You came in there showing your ring and telling people you're getting married? I don't know. Anyway, let me not get sidetracked. So he's telling everybody he's getting married. So Randy doesn't know this, but the guy works there. So everybody who's there knows him. So everybody's excited for him. And they basically stop what they're doing to go to him to congratulate him. And Randy is so upset. And Randy's like, who gives a fuck, right? And the dude's like, well, I give a fuck. And they start arguing. And then things got physical between the two of them, and they both end up getting a knife so that they could obviously hurt each other. They don't end up hurting each other, especially since Randy has a butter knife, so he wouldn't be able to do anything if he really wanted to. Maybe with some force he could really hurt him, but probably wouldn't puncture anything. So while they're fighting, somebody calls the cops, and the cops are on their way. And as they hear the sirens coming closer, the guy who's getting married, he runs out. I don't know if they end up getting him right there and then, but Randy is still at the Waffle House, and he's still upset. The cops, obviously, they know who he is, and they try to give him a chance to calm down and just say what happened. But Randy was like on like another level of upset, and they're trying to calm him down, and it got to the point where basically they decided to arrest him for disorderly conduct, something like that. And no, not disorderly conduct, I'm sorry, it was disturbing the peace. So they were going to put him handcuffed, and he's resisting now. And they got to a point where there was pepper spray him, but he ducks, and the officer behind him ends up getting sprayed in the eyes. So now he's just doing the most, and they're like, hey, we're going to release a dog on you if you cannot calm down. And he did not calm down, and they released the dog. And what does Randy does? He kicks the dog. Obviously, the dog is upset and ends up biting him in the ass. And yes, he ends up getting arrested, obviously. But later on, he actually contacted a local newspaper, and he wanted to give his side of the story, basically making him look good. But at the same time, he decided that he was going to apologize publicly, because he knew that what he did was obviously not right as far as how he reacted toward the police officers. So the CWA was definitely one of the most influential territories. We had some of the biggest names starting up at this territory that end up taking that Memphis style to promotions like the WWF. And we had the Armstrongs, we had the Poffos, we had Iron Sheik, Kamala, we've had Dutch, we had obviously the Jarretts providing such a phenomenal territory. And there's just so much that I think that pro wrestling could learn if they take a look back at what made these territories successful. And this was definitely a great way to start the season. Obviously, I had already covered all the other episodes after that. If you have any wrestling documentaries or whatever you would like me to review, put it down in the comments, and I will definitely check it out and review it. Guys, thanks so much for watching my review. Bye.